And thank you everybody that joined us. This is, we, Roxie and Craig and I, all three met last week, and we've participated in a lot of Zoom calls, but none of us have actually hosted a Zoom call. So be patient with this because we're trying to figure out the logistical side from hosting. So we'll hopefully get a little smoother at it. But Craig Dehut is one of our members at Nexus, and he actually is a brilliant filmographer. Is that what you call it? What do you call it?
Either one works. Yeah, filmmaker, videographer.
Okay.
You like, yeah.
And he is a great conversationalist too, and so he volunteered to help host these. Roxie has done a phenomenal job contacting everybody and trying to get some participation, and so that we can use some of this time to connect as a community, learn more about what type of work everybody's doing and why they do it, and I think that this will be great. So I am going to hand it over to Craig, and he's going to just keep us on track, and you can explain how you're going to do questions and stuff, Craig.
Yeah. So just to clarify at the very beginning, so it's easier to remember, my last name is Dehut. And think about it like Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars. And so now you'll never forget it. Yeah, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to give each presenter 18 to 20 minutes. The idea is that they'll present for about 10 minutes, take us through what they'd like to share with us about what they're doing. And I've glanced at several of these presenters' information, and I'm new to Nexus, but I am just blown away with the awesome stuff that is being done. And so they'll have about 10 minutes to present, and then 10 minutes, give or take, for Q&A. If you have a question during their presentation and you don't want to forget it, you can either write it down or put it here in the comments. There's that chat window that you can click there on the bottom. And during the Q&A, I'll kind of field those comment questions to the presenter. Or, and I'm probably saying things that at this point you all are very familiar with Zoom now, but you can raise your hand during the presentation. So if you click on the Manage Participants button there at the bottom, it'll bring up a list of everyone who is here in the window, and you can click on Raise Your Hand.
Ours just says reactions, I think.
Yeah, okay, yours says reactions, yep.
Well, no, mine doesn't even say raise hand, it's a clapping or a thumbs up.
That's interesting, because
or
now
we could raise our hand.
Or you really could raise your hand. And I feel like there's a modest amount of people in here. The idea is that everyone will stay muted during the presentation, and when you are ready to ask a question, either I can unmute you or you can take the time to unmute. Yeah, if you want to physically raise your hand, that would require a few of you to actually turn on your videos, but that's up to you. That's up to you.
So my screen shows participants, and then when I click that, it shows a raise hand, but maybe.
There you go.
So, and then also the chat window, you can also use the chat window to comment or say.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
There it is. Participants and then raise hand.
Yep. And then throughout the discussion, leaving links, either your contact information or video. We kind of mentioned that to play video within Zoom, it kind of breaks my heart as a video guy. It just doesn't work well. And so if you've got links to videos or other things that you'd like to share that we can watch later, you can put that in the comment section as well. Any questions before we jump right in? I don't see any hands. So we're going to start with Rich from Water for Good. And I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and let him take the floor.
Great, thanks. Nice to meet everybody. We're spending our lives on Zoom these days, instead of the office, but it's a pleasure to meet everybody. I probably run into maybe a couple of you in the coffee room or hallways, even though I don't always make it to the new office, new to Water for Good anyway. So pleasure to meet everybody. So I'm gonna quickly talk about Water for Good. And I'm going to run you through some slides, but so let me share screen. And before I get into the slides, I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about how I got connected with this organization, because I think it might make it a little more interesting. So everybody should see a splash screen that says Water for Good. Okay, so Water for Good's an Indiana 501c3 nonprofit. I ran into it back in, I think it was 2008 or 2009. So I was at the Center on Philanthropy doing my PhD now at the School of Philanthropy at Indiana University downtown here in Indy. And I've worked in nonprofits most of my life, mostly Africa focused. I'm originally from Indianapolis, born here, but I was a missionary kid raised in French West Africa. So that explains the connection to Africa. And it just so happens that during my lifetime, it's almost like Americans discovered the continent of Africa. Europeans had been going there for quite a while, but somewhat new to Americans. So what do Americans do when they discover a place? They start all kinds of things. So suddenly there were all these organizations starting to do all sorts of things in Africa. So my career has essentially surfed that wave. So it's mostly been involved with startup and turnaround, because a lot of Americans were starting things in Africa and needed help doing that, which I would do. Or after an initiative had been going for a while, if there were problems, then I would get involved to sort out those problems and bring solutions. So that's really been the bulk of my career to date, and I'm still doing it. One of the interesting things I was able to get involved in was called H2O Africa. It's now called water.org. So I was the launch executive director of Matt Damon's water charity. And what that really means was the first year I did research on water in Africa. I didn't know much about it when we started H2O Africa, which merged with an organization in Kansas City called Water Partners to create water.org. And anyway, so that was a launch executive director's job. So I found everything I could about water in Africa, and I was quickly somewhere between horrified and disgusted. I found out that we had been, organizations had been putting water utilities and water infrastructure all across the continent, and that most of it was, or too big of a percentage of it was breaking down. Nobody really knew, but the estimates that were being admitted were somewhere around half of it was broken. Well, that shouldn't be a surprise, since time to failure on a mechanical pump in sub-Saharan Africa is 18 months. So, when you're new to something, you just kind of scratch your head. You're like, so we installed all this water infrastructure knowing that it would break, or we didn't know it would break. Either way, it's not really cool. So, but one organization stood out. And obviously, when you're working with Matt Damon, there's plenty of money. So the issue was really, how do you spend this money with organizations that actually focused on sustainability? And there was this little organization out of Warsaw, Indiana, that stood out because they had a maintenance program. They had built a structured program to do after service repair. And I was like, that's just weird. That's amazing. And I was sitting in Indianapolis at my office at the School of Philanthropy and found out about this thing, because I was actually looking for some photos to put on the H2O Africa website or something like that. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing, because they're right here in Indiana. I recognize the area code. I'm like, this is bizarre. We were funding things all over the world. And one of the most interesting ones to me was right here in Indiana. So I got to meet these people. Little did I know I would end up doing a consulting gig with them, which led to me working with the organization starting in 2011. And I still work with the organization. So I was most recently the CEO for 5 years. I just stepped down, and I'm now the chief people officer, mostly focused on training and spending time on things related to our work in Africa. Let me quickly buzz you through these slides, and then we'll just get the questions. So Water for Good was started by a man named Jim Hoffman from Warsaw, Indiana. That's why it's from Indiana. He was a Grace Brother missionary in the country. And the country has known, Central African Republic has known successive wars about once every 10 years. since its founding. It's extremely poor, usually on the very bottom of the pile. And Jim had a heart for these people, and after his missionary career became a well driller. That's the shorthand on it. And Jim recognized, as many of us have, and as you probably know, that water, when you don't have water, you have a certain type of a big problem. Because water is, not only one of the most basic human needs, but frustratingly so, because clean water is usually right below our feet. But it requires a technology to get it out, right? Or technologies to filter it, or technologies to displace it. And here comes the problem where, that's really why people die from unsafe water. It's related to the technologies that we deploy and our seeming inability to keep them maintained, or the complexities of keeping them ongoing. So Water for Good's goal was to provide clean drinking water to the second poorest country in the world. It actually ranks sometimes as the first poorest country in the world, unfortunately. And part of our, what we like to say at Water for Good is, if you can do it in a country that's infrastructurally so complex, you should be able to do this anywhere in the world that's needed. So we're focused on one country, Central African Republic. We don't work anywhere else. Our goal is to solve the water crisis there by creating systems for sustainable water across the entire country. So how do you do that? Well, you got to have a plan. This is the shape of the country. It's not that big of a country, 4.7 million people. But we've decided to go all in one country for this purpose. A lot of water organizations work sort of all over the place. But if your goal is sustainability, to design a system that will last after the implementation, then focusing on one country actually makes a lot of sense. So our first step is, we've worked in 9 of these provinces that you see. We continually work in 9 of these provinces where we do borehole drilling. That's the big machinery. And we do after-service repair. So we build maintenance teams that repair afterwards. We're currently serving somewhere around 1,800 community pumps in this country. So that's a lot of pumps. That's a lot of people. I also wanted to highlight the fact, when you see this, that we're implementers. If you haven't been involved with water, you might not know that water implementation is divided into, if you take all the water organizations out there, you can pretty much lump them into 2 categories. Most water organizations raise funds, and that's all they do. And then they pass those funds off to what we call implementers. So Water for Good is an implementer. So we drill the wells. A lot of people have heard of charity water, fundraiser. They don't implement anything. They pass money off to organizations like ours, and we implement. So we implement charity water's work in this country. And just so you know how it works. So when I say infrastructure, I mean building the infrastructure and when I say maintenance crews, I'm talking about people that have tools and that are trained and have a professionalized service for maintenance. So if you're going to build a system, you build that system in one part of a country, and then you move it across province by province, which is what we've been doing. So our focus region is in a province called Dehut. And our goal is then to scale that to the other 9 provinces where we work, as well as then to the rest of the country, which gets more and more, less and less populated as you move to the north and east. We build locally owned and operated water businesses. That's the long-term goal. So our goal is to spin these maintenance teams out of the NGO into locally owned businesses for the sustainability of maintenance services. And then that requires, obviously, training locals on water sustainability, sanitations, and other related function, and encourage communities to be part of the resource generation that's required. They resell water in Africa. In Central African Republic, not across Africa, but in this country they do. And they use some of those fees to pay part of this, the fund, what it costs to provide this service. People always ask us, how much does this stuff cost? So the final slide here is shows you that for $5 in our, that's basically our total cost divided by how many people we serve regularly through sustainable water, and it totals up to $5. If you're interested, go to our website. There are many ways to engage. And now on to questions.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for that. I don't want to ask the first questions. So I see Robin's got her hand raised, and so go for it.
So Rich, you guys are actually helping start businesses in Africa that do the maintenance, or do they do the implementation too? And then you guys, you do have an ownership in those, or those are independently? Explain that a little bit more and how you're employing Africans.
So that's the future state of that's where we're headed. That's the goal. Right now, we took the drilling operation and spun off a locally owned and operated business. So there's a Central African drilling business that we now partner with. We still have our own equipment as well, and part of that is a mitigation strategy because it's a very complex emergency country. So if that goes down, we can still keep providing. But though that business is spun off and locally owned by the guy who actually used to do all of our borehole drilling. A phenomenal person. And then the goal then is on the maintenance teams right now, they you can think of them almost as their own little businesses, but they live inside of the NGO for a variety of reasons. And then the goal then would be to, as possible, spin those off as regional maintenance businesses. Right now we're focused on, if you think about the way an after service business would work, you got to have a lot of pumps clustered in one area to make a business model for maintenance to work. So we're still engaged in clustering enough water in one area to create a market essentially for after service repair. And then we're experimenting with a variety of different projects that will help us learn what we need to learn to competently spin off these businesses. We don't want to do it too fast and have them crash because it requires a genuine market. And nobody does this in emergency countries. Everybody's focused on relief, so it's a little weird to be doing this in Central African Republic. But we think it's super important for that reason. Because what happens is after the emergency, all the NGOs leave and everything just crashes. We've seen this all over in these countries. So anyway, yeah, thanks for the question.
I don't see any hands raised. Any other questions? You can shoot those in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out, and maybe we'll get tired of asking this question, but I am interested to hear from other nonprofits about how our current circumstances may be affecting what you guys are doing. Has that interrupted or made communication difficult? And what are some things that you all are doing maybe to shift or change during these times?
Is that a question to the group or to me?
To you. Yeah.
Oh, to me. Okay.
I imagine that question will come up to.
Yeah, I've been on several webinars answering that question because of the connection to the school here. But anyway, yeah, it seems like what I'm learning from people who do a lot of work in the fundraising work in the space is now might not be the most opportune time to focus on solicitation. But any nonprofit that's involved in fundraising, which I think most are, fundraising is a continual flow of cultivation and prospecting, but episodic, stewardship and solicitation. So what we've been telling people is, just hammer down on stewardship right now. People don't know what's happening. They need to be tended to and cared for, which we would do anyway, right? So do a lot of that now, even if it's not your normal stewardship season, which means, reach out to people. I've seen people do a lot of really cool stuff with just, provide, if you know a musician, get everybody get your donors on Zoom and provide some music. Just find out what's going on with people. People will remember this, and when it's time to solicit, we'll be fine. In terms of, people make all kinds of predictions about what's going to happen, but I remember the recession, and nobody really knew. So what has resonated deeply with me is, just keep doing what we know how to do. Take care of people, steward them. It shouldn't be about extracting dollars from people anyway. It's about engaging them in a cause. if you've engaged them in the cause, they're going to be there. If you've just been after their money, you might lose them, and you probably should anyway. So take care of people. They'll be more faithful to the cause that way anyway. So.
Well, we've still got a couple more minutes. I've got a couple more questions, but I don't want to be the question guy.
It's better than silence, no?
That's true. That depends. You haven't known me very long.
Oh yeah, okay. Never mind.
I'm curious what, obviously we're trying to build this community at Nexus, and I'm interested in engaging with you all. Are there things that we can do as our community here specifically to help you?
You know, I have several Water for Good colleagues on here. If they have if they want to participate and jump on with a ready answer, feel free. If not, I am taking it, so you better do it fast. Anyway, yeah, I mean, providing opportunities to tell stories are what matter more than anything else. Everybody thinks we are after the same donors, and research shows it doesn't work that way. People who care about international causes are usually not going to be the exact same people that are going to care about and donate to the local hospital necessarily. So we don't, it's fundraising often feels like we're in competition, but it's actually it's more of a team sport, even cross-pollinating different organizations. So adding, if water is, water is an interesting topic for a bunch of different reasons. There are like symphonies written about, that have been written and performed on water. There's great classical literature about water. Think about water as a religious symbol in the world's, top religion. So there's a lot of overlap. I think water people like us could make a fun evening, even if it was to raise money for your cause, sort of, and vice versa. I don't think we've experimented a lot with that, but when I think of the community here, let's raise money for and resources for what you're doing, and vice versa. I'm sure if we got in the room and got some creatives around some of these ideas, that would flow like water.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. What's the best way of, why don't I actually just do this? The best way to reach out to you, if you could just put that in the comments, an email, or if you're brave enough to put your cell phone number or something. But, and then we are communicating via Slack for those of us who've joined onto that. So if you got any additional questions for him, thank you, Rich.
Oh, it's a real pleasure.
And then I'll just say real quick, because I know who his associates are. Becky Inman, who's known him her whole life. Seda, Pat, and Gwen, I believe, are all Water for Good people that are on the call that I can at least see on my screen right now. So Gwen, Seda, and Becky are probably in the Nexus offices more than some of the others, but they're a great group of people, and they have a beautiful office.
Awesome.
Hey, okay. This is John as well. I'm in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. We also have Olivia, who's in Fort Wayne, and Greg Johnson, who's in the Atlanta area.
All on this call. Oh wow, that's amazing. Didn't see you guys.
Thank you guys for tuning in. That's great.
Hey Olivia. Hey Greg.
Hey Rich.
Hey Seda. Hey Pat. Hey Pat.
All right, we're going to go ahead and pass it off to Carla. So Carla, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and hopefully, 1 second, share my screen. Let me go here. Whoops. Wait a second. Let me stop this for a minute. It's on the wrong slide. Are you guys not seeing my screen anymore? There we go. All right. So let me come Back to Zoom. All right. Oh, goodness. Okay, you guys see that? Thumbs up? Okay.
Yeah.
So, hi, I'm Carla Taylor, and my company is Bring Your Brilliance, and I do a lot with LinkedIn, and so I have this slide from a workshop series that I do called Harnessing the Power of LinkedIn, but I just have to tell a quick story because I met Richard Klopp through LinkedIn well before Nexus Impact Center ever existed. So that is actually someone I have known through my networking on LinkedIn. That's a perfect example of meeting these fantastic, amazing people that then I was thrilled to see. I then, of course, heard about Water for Good through him, and I was so excited to see that they were at Nexus. Robin, you even are somebody that I had multiple people that I knew in my network that had introduced me to you before I realized that Nexus was part of my church. And so like there's so many connections, and that's really what I'm here to talk about is your network and your connections and how you're meeting people and how you're growing your network. So Bring Your Brilliance is my company. I actually have a radio show and podcast by the same name, and I like to shine a spotlight on awesome people doing amazing things. So I'm going to take one more second to shine a spotlight on you, Richard, that this guy's amazing. Like, he is such a wealth of knowledge. He knows so much about so many things. He's so passionate about social impact causes, like he just talked about raising money for anyone and everyone. Like, he is that person who always has the highest good in mind and wants to make sure that whoever you're serving has the best outcome versus the individual agendas or even egos. So Richard is amazing. Reach out to him, say hello. I absolutely adore having him in my network. So I can't say enough about how great he is. And if you haven't already noticed about me, I tend to be someone, no matter what I'm doing, I am a champion of others and helping everyone find their wins. I'm a connector. I like to connect people to each other. And I'm a cheerleader. I like to cheer people on. And that is actually my personal brand, which is part of what I help people do, is figure out who you are and how you're showing up and what you contribute best, no matter what you're doing, which is actually really important right now because we're in a state of flux. Nobody knows what's going on. A lot of jobs have gone away. A lot of people are even filing for unemployment and all sorts of things. And so if you've wrapped your whole personal brand around a business, even if it's your own, that it doesn't survive something like this, you're not in a great place. But if you've positioned your personal brand around who you are and how you're showing up authentically, then you have what we call career insurance, where people already know you and love you and trust you and want to do more business with you. And like Rich said also, how we're showing up in times of hardship and crises is actually what shows what we're made of. And that's where people are going to see that and admire and respect that even more during these times than however we might show up any other time. So this really is a great time to invest in the people that you care about, in the causes that you care about, in the businesses that you care about. Really reach out and connect with people in a deeper, more meaningful way that's really even more allowed right now because people really do need it. So that's just a little bit that I want to say about that. So a little bit more about what I do and how I help. Like I said, I do a lot with personal branding and LinkedIn and that sort of thing. I also have a program I wrote called the Career Happiness Project, and I really want people to be aligned with who they are at their highest self, their fully authentic self. And so I've spent a lot of time in my past working with that, and I bring that to the LinkedIn work that I do. So it really starts with knowing your authentic personal brand first and then putting it out into the world. And part of why you're doing that is because you're looking for what I call your high vibe tribe. So you want to be around people. And again, especially right now, we can see the difference it makes of who you're spending time with, even on Zoom or phone calls or wherever else. If you're around people who are upset and complaining and whining and mad, and that's hard to be around a lot. And I know we all need to give everyone a lot of grace because we all are feeling emotions we probably maybe have never felt in our lives. So it's okay to feel those things, but we can't live there. And so be really careful to think about who are you spending time with right now, and are they bringing you up? Are they lifting you up? Are they helping you focus on what you can do and what you can create and how you can move forward, or even just stay still, be okay where you are right now. But it's really important as you're connecting with people to also pay attention to these kinds of things. So this is all the stuff that, as you can tell, I get really passionate about and I get really excited about, because it really makes a huge, amazing difference in your life of how you're experiencing, especially the harder times. And so don't try to do this alone. Like, we are reaching out actually more than ever. That's why people are on all these back-to-back Zoom calls and sometimes forgetting to schedule time to go to the bathroom in between, which I know I've struggled with. So I'm trying to not have quite as many. But do reach out, do ask for help, even if it's just, hey, I just need somebody to listen to me so I can complain for an hour, or, whatever it is. But like, we are cooped up with a lot of times our family, and it's intense all the time. And so we do have to reach out and ask for help and ask for things that we might need, even things we wouldn't normally ask for. So that's one of the things I just want everyone to think about going forward is, don't, just because we're social distancing and self-isolating doesn't mean we need to do everything by ourselves. So I'm not going to ask you to actually say this right now, but either put it in the comments or just think to yourself, like, what are you doing right now to grow your network and stay connected? And so maybe it's not growing wider to new people, but maybe it's just even growing the relationships that you have. Or maybe it is a great time to grow and meet some new people and grow your network and that sort of thing. And that's one of the reasons why I love LinkedIn, because it's one of the best. It is the biggest networking event on the planet right now. And it is online, and it is accessible to all of us right where we are. And so some of the things that I help with are, like I talked about, your authentic personal brand. I help you look at your LinkedIn strategy and marketing. I do a lot with content creation. And in fact, we were just getting ready to launch the Bring Your Brilliance media room at Nexus Impact Center. I was so excited to finally be able to open that up and bring people in and help you learn more about how to create your own content, create your own videos, just even like day-to-day kind of updates, and make it easy and accessible for everyone. So you don't have to be on video, and you don't even have to be comfortable on video, but videos are a great way to get attention and to get people to know more about you and tell your stories. And so that's something that I work with people on. Of absolutely, there's higher end videos that you need at times to really showcase things, but the more accessible day-to-day or week-to-week kind of telling of your stories, or talking about what your charity is doing, or talk about what social impact you're having, or the stories of the people that you're helping. There's so many different ways that we can use video to tell stories, and that is huge for engagement. It's the number one. I think it's like 40% more engagement when you have videos on LinkedIn as well. And of course, there's all sorts of other platforms. I just happen to love LinkedIn because it's where all the business people are. And so that's what I do. And that's where I find most of the people that I want to be interacting with. But there's a lot of different ways that you can create content that you don't have to use any video, but we did want to provide a place at Nexus Impact Center, when we can all go back there, that is a place where you can record videos or even audio. I am going to start doing some live broadcasts from here where I can bring people on and interview you. So if you're interested in that, I also do have my radio show if you want to be potentially a guest on that. So please reach out if you're interested in any of these things. I'm also getting ready to release my 90-day brilliance planner, so I won't spend any time talking about that, but if that's something you're interested in, I'd love to share with you. But just in general, when you think about networking, it's really about building meaningful, lasting, mutually beneficial relationships one person at a time. So it shouldn't be any more intimidating to do it from home than it is in person. In fact, it might be easier to reach out to one person at a time right now. So this is a really great time to be doing that and focusing on, like I said, either people you want to build a deeper relationship with, or adding a few really deliberate people that you're bringing into your network. And remember, there's no such thing as B2B or B2C, which is business to business or business to consumer. At the end of the day, when people are making a buying decision, it's really H2H, which is human to human. And people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And they get to know, like, and trust you when you put yourself out there and bring your brilliance to the world. And one of the ways you can do that is through writing, through video, through all sorts of different ways to share what you're doing. And again, there's so many different platforms people do it on, but I absolutely love the ability. And LinkedIn is also awesome because there's not as many content creators. And so it's a wide open market right now. You can get a lot more seen, you can trend, you can do so much more on LinkedIn than any other platform. So it's also very hot right now, and I'm sure even more so. I haven't seen the increased numbers of everybody who's on there even more every day, but already before that, there were 9 billion content impressions per week on LinkedIn, and I don't even know how big it is now. So so again, raise of hand. You don't have to actually speak right now because I know we're trying to go fairly quickly, but just, yeah, how many of you are currently active on LinkedIn? Let me see if I can get to the chat, actually. There's some hands. Oops, I don't know what I did. Dang it, never mind. I'm not gonna try to look at the chat. I'll just keep going. So I'll look at that in a minute. But again, just a few numbers if you're not already convinced about why I love LinkedIn so much. There are right now there's 675 million users across the world. And again, these are numbers before coronavirus hit. So I don't even know what the new numbers are. And out of those, 61 million are senior level influencers and 40 million are decision makers. It is the #1 channel selected by 94% of B2B marketers, 91% of marketing executives, and like I said, 9 billion content impressions every week, again, before we even hit the coronavirus numbers. Out of the 10,000 most shared articles, which here's a great place to publish your articles, only 6% of those were written by the influencers like the Gary V's and the Simon Sinek's of the world. So that means 94% of the shared articles are by everyday people. And again, there's so much room for content creators and for you to get your voice out there and create education for the people that you're trying to help of how you can help them, what you can do, what they might need. 80% of B2B leads are from LinkedIn versus only 13% on Twitter and 7% on Facebook. So if you're trying to think about where you want to put yourself out there, if you're trying to do work with other businesses, LinkedIn is the place for you to be. And again, 3 times more conversion. But
I'm going to throw this out real quick because we've already got questions kind of coming in.
Okay, I can't see them.
30 more seconds and then we'll go to Q&A.
Sure. Okay, so I won't go through any of this, but personal brand, you have one whether you know it or not. It's what people say with you when about you when you're not around. So be deliberate about what your personal brand is. Taking action. I have a 4-week coaching program I'm getting ready to do. I've got power hours that you can book with me. And if you want to just talk to me about whatever, please go ahead and book a free 15-minute call at bringyourbrilliance.as.me. And ta-da, there's my radio show. So let me go ahead and let me stop the sharing. Here we go. There, back here now. Okay, and let me see the comments.
Awesome. So if you could definitely, before you're done with the Q&A, include some of those links and things, yes, in comments, so we've got a record of that. So Robin, I think you've got a question.
Carla, you are clearly passionate about what you do. So can you share with us why is this what you do?
Well, I've done a lot of things in my career. I've had a lot of different career reinventions myself. And I started, I've been on LinkedIn for a while and it really wasn't doing anything. It was just kind of a static resume platform. Some people were updating their pictures and stuff, but about, I think 2 to 3 years ago, it started to come alive. The first 50 content creators really started generating content. And I saw some crazy cool things happening for them. I saw people like this one woman, especially I talk about all the time. Her name is Michaela Alexis. She was one of the first. She was a young blonde woman. She got her dream job solely on LinkedIn. Her post went viral. She had millions of views solely on LinkedIn. She started her whole speaking career just through LinkedIn. And I started meeting some really amazing, fantastic people. And I started following a lot of these people. So my LinkedIn live feed, or my LinkedIn feed, is alive with people who are sharing all sorts of things. I go there for my industry news. I go there to learn about different things I'm trying to learn about. It has become this really fun place for me to hang out and meet amazing people like Richard Klopp or others that I've met through LinkedIn. So that's exciting to me.
So I did have a question, and I guess it just went to you privately, but
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your radio show? Is this
Sure.
in the form of a podcast, or how can we listen?
So my radio show is on a network called Inspired Choices Network. It's live every Friday at 10 a.m. So you could listen live directly through Inspired Choices Network, or within 10 minutes of it being played live, it's then pushed out to 50 different channels as a podcast replay. So I think I've got about 40 episodes out there. Anywhere you listen to podcasts. I recently discovered, because I'm home all the time, that I can say, hey, Alexa, play the latest episode of the Bring Your Brilliance podcast, and it starts playing on my Alexa, which is really cool. So you can even do that if you're trying to find it. Let's see.
My Alexa just went off when you did that.
Any other questions? Oh, really? Did it start playing my episode? Well, cool. I found it for you. Well, anyway, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to get back to Nexus in person sometime, but I'm absolutely excited to meet everyone and get to know everyone virtually if that's what we're doing for a while. And even in the future, it's still a great way. I think the strongest relationships are those that we have both online and offline. And so when you have both elements, it can make it really, really powerful.
All right, last chance for questions. No? Okay. And if you think of any later, by all means, shoot them down in the comment section.
I'll put
yeah, definitely. You can put your contact information down there in the comments, and we'll pass it off. We've got one more, and looking forward to hearing more about this.
Cool. So am I up now?
It's all yours.
Okay, good, cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Jack Klemeyer, and I'm a John Maxwell coach, and I've been coaching for a long time. I don't know how many years, long time, in double digits, I think now, and became a John Maxwell coach in 2015 when John Maxwell came to Indiana to speak at the Indiana HR conference, and I was fortunate enough to be selected to speak there. And so I thought, well, I'll become a John Maxwell coach, and he and I can pal around. How naive was that? And so, but it's one of the best things I've ever done for my business is just to be associated with John Maxwell. Some people may not. Does anybody not know who John Maxwell is? Show of hands if you don't know who John Maxwell is. Oh, that's cool. Neat. Anna is also a John Maxwell coach. So Anna, thank you for being that. And so, thinking about today, what to share? Great presentations from Rich, great presentations from Carla. Carla's energy is just so contagious, which is a good thing. It's not COVID, it's good stuff to catch. So catch her energy. It's awesome. One of the things that I do with clients that I wanted to try to see if I could share virtually, and I've never done this before, so this may not work, and if it doesn't, we'll learn from it. But Maxwell has a thing called the leadership game. And in the leadership game, what happens is you get a team or a group of people around a table, and they actually they roll a die. And when they roll the dice, it's one die, it's different colors on each side. And then whatever color comes up, we draw a card from 6 different cards. And how you win at this game is you win by giving points away. So each player can give 2 points away to someone. I, as the facilitator, can give 1 point away. And then there's a card that you can draw from, which is called the gold card, which allows you to get 3 points. And so however many points you have at the end of the game are subtracted from the points you didn't give away. So if you come up with a positive, and then I usually give away a book or something like that just for fun. But I thought we'd just try to play maybe a round, and I picked out just randomly 6 different cards here because it's a 6-sided die. And so this maybe 1 through 6, and we can't pick 4 yet. So just put the number in there, 1 through 6, and we can't pick 4 yet. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But just put a number in the chat box, if you will. So 2. So Anna picked a 2, and so I chose 2 to be yellow. So that would be from the organization card. And so from that, what happens in the back of the card, it gives you what to do. So you're usually playing this around a table with a group of people. Okay, stop with the numbers. That's good. Okay, hang on. And so what this card says, what we're going to do is use a sticky pad, or we just talk about it. But you don't manage your time, you manage your life. What are 2 habits or priorities that should be changed now, which is great timing, in order for you to achieve the results you want 1 to 2 years from now? So what would be 1 or 2 things, 1 or 2 habits or priorities that should be changed now that you have to get the results that you want 1 or 2 years from now? So you can either type that in the box or just make a note of that. But what happens is when you're working with a team is people forget that they're divulging information about how they believe and how they act. And they actually get into the game and they actually answer questions like this, which then allows the team to get to know each other better. But it also allows me as a facilitator to diagnose and say, okay, we got some issues going on here with this. We don't have priorities, or we haven't thought about that. So we need to have a conversation about that. So it opens up ideas and conversations. So somebody write something down for themselves about what are 1 or 2 priorities you need to change now to get the results that you want. So that's part of it. This game is taking action. So just think about to yourself, make a note. And then the next number that came in was as Carla said, she's invited to come make videos and audio recordings. Cool. So cool. I'm going to take you up on that, Carla. So then number 3 is green. Green is personal leadership. And so it says, share your response to the following question or statement with the rest of the team. When you get kicked in the rear, you're out in front. When others criticize you, is your first reaction to dismiss what is said, defend yourself, or fight back? So you can unmute yourself and answer that. You know, when you get kicked in the rear, you're out front is the quote. When others criticize you, is your first reaction to dismiss what is said, defend yourself, or fight back? Thoughts, anyone? What's your first reaction? This is the participation part of the game.
I'll jump in. Yep. I'll jump in, Jack. So my first reaction is I'm horribly embarrassed because then I've inconvenienced somebody or something along those lines. So I don't know which one. Maybe defend myself. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel very vulnerable at that point.
Yeah, right. And so sometimes this doesn't happen where you may not defend yourself out loud. You defend yourself by retreating or going somewhere else or just shutting that person out, right? So those are the 3 common things that happen. And so as a facilitator, I can say, hey, that was awesome transparency, right? So I could give you a point for that is how that would work. And so you would be 1 point up on everybody else. So the next number was a 5. And so 5 is dark red, which is the leader's card. And so the leader's card says, spend the next few minutes discussing amongst the team the following question. Lead yourself. How is balance or imbalance in your personal and professional life related to your ability to lead? So we would have a conversation around that topic. We'd have a conversation about how balance or imbalance is related to your ability to lead. And so we would talk that out and see how that would go. And that I would control the conversation to last 5 or 7 minutes. Usually when we play the game, it takes a couple of hours. And it's amazing how when we go around the table, or each person passes a die and we roll the die around the table, people don't realize how fast time goes. And so they're into the game, and I'll say, we've been playing now for 90 minutes, and they'll be like, are you serious? It doesn't seem like that, because everybody gets immersed in the game. It's a unique thing that I can do. So just as an offer, I would love to do that with any of your leadership teams. If you have a team, would love to do the leadership game with you. Let me come back and close up the loop on why I said no blue cards. The blue card is a trigger card, and usually that's played after 5 people have pulled a card from the stack. And the trigger card is kind of a review card. And so you go back and say, okay, what has been discussed in this exercise so far that needs to be revisited? So that's just one example of a blue card. So if a conversation came up and I moved us along, and maybe I moved us along too fast, or if somebody didn't feel like they were heard, they could bring up what needs to be addressed in this exercise that needs to be revisited. What do we need to talk about? So it allows you to, even if a topic's broached but not dug in deep enough and people want to talk more about it, then they talk more about it. The times that I've played this game, one was with a sales team and a customer service team, and you would think those two would get along really well, but they didn't. There was a lot of animosity because sales made promises customer service couldn't deliver on. Customer service was throwing sales under the bus. And so when we played this game, what happened is they were able to see that the differences they were all very similar in their approach, and the things that they talked about were all very similar, and it helped them gel as a team better. And then it also helped them go to a place to have better conversations after we played the game. So it worked out really well. So this the pink card would just say, law of the picture, people do what people see. Is there any area of our company where we do what, where we say one thing and do another? So those are the kind of questions that come out in the leadership game. And I was going to do something else, but I just felt inspired from what Carla and Rich did. That I wanted to share the leadership game. And I don't know if I did it service or not, but it's an awesome experience for a team to be involved in and to play with. And again, they forget that they're playing, that they're telling me and telling whoever's helping me facilitate the secrets of their, you know, what goes on behind closed doors while the game's being played. So I'll stop there and if you have any questions or whatever, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or challenges. No, I think the answer is no to that one.
Yeah. Is your background in HR? You said you met him at a HR thing you were speaking at.
No, but I've been fired before. No, I have actually. But my work with HR was when I worked with an insurance company and I was in charge of recruiting agents. And so I worked really closely with HR. Carla has a really good HR background. She's done a lot of stuff with HR. And so I work with a lot of HR teams because usually those folks are pinched where there's a leader that's not leading. And John Maxwell has a quote that says, everything rises and falls with leadership or on leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. So if there's a challenge somewhere in the company, it's a leadership issue somewhere. If sales are down, it's a leadership issue. If there's a rift between customer service and sales, it's a leadership issue. And so I worked on the leadership side and developing the people that came on board. And I worked with my HR folks to make sure I didn't break any laws or rules because they helped me do that. But they were great. We were a great team working together because I relied on them a lot for things. But yeah, so no, I don't have an HR background, but I work with a lot of HR teams.
So Jack, I know you do have an NLP background, which has always been kind of cool, but now everybody's starting to know it's cool. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when I went from personal production into leadership, I had a consultant that I'd hired. I'd gone through a divorce and I don't know if you've ever been through a divorce. I hope you haven't, but you get kind of distracted when you're in a divorce. And so I'd hired a consultant to help me get my agency straightened out before I went into leadership. And I asked him, his name's Tim Hosey. He's still around. He lives in Bloomington. And I said, Tim, what do I need to do? And he said, you need to learn NLP. So I had no idea what it was. It stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. It was popular in the 70s and 80s. I learned it much after that. But what it does is it helps you understand what you think, how you think. And so for example, if you're not getting the results you want, many people look at, well, you're not getting the results, let's try this different action. And when you do that, you get short-term change. What you have to figure out is how are the people thinking about what they're doing? Because when you change the thinking, you get long-term change. And so what NLP helps me do in my coaching practice and mastermind group facilitation and training is it helps me uncover limiting beliefs, low expectations, or ineffective strategies. I believe it all boils down to those three things. It's either a limiting belief, you don't think you can, you don't think you're good enough, you don't think you're resourced, or it's a low expectation. I used to say low standard, but I think it's an expectation because expectations create standards. Over time, if I have an expectation of things are going to happen, that becomes my standard. And then the third thing is an ineffective strategy. You're going about it wrong. So those are three. That's how I use the NLP, is to try to diagnose what am I dealing with here, and then how do we address it. So thanks, Carla, for bringing that up. So it's kind of mysterious because people don't know that much about it. I use it probably more than I realize I use it. I called one of my mentors in January, and we did a little webinar on NLP, and that was a blast because I got to go back 15 years and play NLP again, and it was really, really fun. But yeah, so yeah, great questions. Any other questions? So think of me as a resource if you want to bounce an idea off. Kind of like Carla said, we've been in groups together before, but just, think of me as a resource. I'll be more than happy to answer a question. I do a monthly lunch and learn webinar called Leadership Insights, and it's on the first Tuesday of each month. And that You can get there by going to myleadershipinsights.com. And so this month, well, in May, we're going to be, Tom Richardson and I are going to be talking about reflective thinking, how to use the power of reflective thinking. So that's what we're going to. So yeah, thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Rick. Myleadershipinsights.com, and go there. And there's no charge for it. It's just a way for us to learn and grow and share. So we do that, a couple other things every month. So right now I'm taking a group through Leading Through Crisis. So that's a fun experience too, taking folks through that. So yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to be here, you guys. Appreciate it.
No, it was fantastic. Thank you all for presenting today. If you could, Jack, just include your email or the best way of contacting you there in the comments.
Yeah.
I personally was curious, the game that you were playing with us, was that something that you created, or is it something that you
No, so there were a couple of John Maxwell coaches in Texas that's a husband and wife team that created it. And so when I first saw it, I thought, well, that looks like that'd be fun. And so then I got it. And it was amazing. Just every time I've played it, people have just been wowed by it, but not by the game, but by the experience they have while playing the game.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool, is because I just have to facilitate the thing. And quite frankly, it's pretty easy work because I just facilitate the fun, and I like fun. That's one of my values.
You just figured out why I'm hosting today.
There you go.
Honestly, it's amazing how much you can learn if you can trick people into having fun. So we are right up on the edge of 4 o'clock. It looks like even there are a couple of people who've jumped off. But are there any additional questions to any of our presenters maybe that didn't get asked? And again, I'm going to be taking the video that's being recorded today, and we will get that up on YouTube as quickly as possible. Did you mention that, Robin, the address of the YouTube account yet, or will that come out in future communication?
I'll probably send a member news out I'll probably send it tomorrow, and it will have a link to the video where other people can see when they can't participate. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and whoever we're going to highlight next week.
Yeah. Fantastic. I hope this is doing for you guys what it's already doing for me, is that when we finally do get a chance to be back in the same building together, that we can all kind of hit the ground running and get some good things done together. So big thank you to you all. And that's all I've got. Roxie or Robin, do you have anything else?
I just want to thank Craig and Roxie because they've done all the work on this.
Thank you.
And also for everybody that participated and those who were willing to be the first ones to present, because I know sometimes you're like, I don't know exactly what all I should talk about because I've not seen one before. So thank you guys for being willing to be the first. And again, I think, like Craig said, I've met everybody, but you guys haven't met everybody. So now you'll see somebody walking down the hall and be like, oh, I know who you are, or know something about what you do. And I think that'll be great.